the bank, that is HSBC. So as I was telling you that this HSBC bank class, it is implementing all the functions of the bank, that is HSBC transferring money, HSBC crediting money, HSBC debiting money. Now from test class, test bank, I cannot write bank B equals to new bank, but I can definitely write HSBC bank out here. That is parent class reference equals to new child class. What will this do? This will do, as we had seen in earlier, that this combination, it calls all the functions from the parent class, but if that function is overridden, the overridden function of the child class gets called. Okay, now if I go to test bank and I write B dot, I will get the function of credit over here. B dot, I will get the function of debit, and B dot, I will get the function as transfer money. And I can also write system dot out dot print ln the variable minimum balance. Okay, I forgot to tell you one thing. The variables in interface are static. This is the catch. The variables are static. You can directly call them by the interface name dot the variable name. This is how it has been designed. Why? Because I am not able to create the object of the interface. If I have to access any variable, then I should directly be able to access it with the interface name dot the variable name bank dot minimum balance. I cannot change the state of this variable. I cannot write some other value to it. It will give me an error. That final field cannot be assigned a value. Now this way, all these three functions from the child class will be called. That is from HSBC bank. When I run this, it does this. Alright. Now how is the inheritance? Okay, we studied about three things: inheritance, overriding, and interfaces. How these three things are implemented in the architecture of Selenium. Okay, so let us see that. Everybody knows that the new version of Selenium is WebDriver, right? And whosoever web designed this in new version, right? If you, okay, the question is, if I write HSBC bank, that's a good question. X equals to new HSBC bank. What can I do? I can again call these three functions. I can again call these three functions. Then what can be the difference between the output will remain same in both the cases. Okay, the output will remain same in both the cases. When I run the code, the output will remain same. HSBC crediting money, HSBC debiting money, HSBC transferring money, and same over here. Then what is the difference between calling in this way and calling in this way? The difference comes in the fact that suppose HSBC class, it goes out of the contract and defines one more function. Public void, say, international banking. System.out.println, and I'll write HSBC international banking. Fine. Then this function was against the contract of the interface. Okay. So in my testbank.java, I can call this function over here because I'm directly creating the object of HSBC. But when I call this function out here, b dot international trans banking, I will not be able to do that because B is the reference of the bank interface. Through this, you can only call the functions which are there in bank and which are overridden in HSBC. So this defines the contract. This is the difference. Fine? Got it? Right? So you cannot access the functions which are local to a class if you are creating an object this way. Okay? If you have any questions, please ask me. I feel free to understand. Sorry, feel free to ask your questions. Right? So now, as I was talking about the architecture of Selenium, how does that architecture work? Whosoever designed that architecture, how did he implement the classes? We all know that the latest version is known as WebDriver. Now, what actually WebDriver is? WebDriver is an interface. Okay, there is an interface named as WebDriver defined in the architecture of Selenium. So this is my WebDriver. This is an interface, and it's got a number of functions and number of functions inside it. And we have got many classes like Firefox driver, Internet Explorer driver, Event Firing driver, iPhone driver, Chrome driver, right? And number of drivers available. And all these classes implement the WebDriver interface and override functions from it. That means that all the functions in the classes will be same. A set of functions in all these classes will be same. So if you look at the interface WebDriver, by just looking at it once, you will see that fine, this is what my Internet Explorer driver is supposed to do, and this exactly will be replicated in the Firefox driver, because if it has got some functions over here, 4 functions, then all these same 4 functions will be implemented by the Firefox driver, but will be there for the Firefox browser. Same 4 functions will be implemented by the Internet Explorer driver, but they will be for Internet Explorer. Fine. So just by looking at the WebDriver interface, you will come to know what your application is doing. So let us open the documentation of Selenium and see what it does. Why not make it a super class rather than an interface, just a matter of preference and style? Yes, to some extent you can say that, okay, but when you are designing big applications, when you are designing big architectures, like the architecture of Selenium, it's quite big, okay. So basically, I'll explain everybody. The question is that, what if I don't declare interfaces? I just have a parent class and the child class combination. You can do this, okay, if your architecture is small, if your application is small, but generally the applications are not very small. There are sometimes you have to create a lot of interfaces in the application. You have to define a lot of contracts. Okay, if somebody else is reading your code, he should be able to understand that what your application is doing. What is the contract of your application? So that is defined by the interface, and if you read the interface, to some extent you can understand the application as well, right? And classes can implement that interface, right? So the interface will just tell you that fine, this application is supposed to do this, but you will actually not know how it does that, because you don't have the access, or you cannot, sometimes you don't have the access to the implementation. Fine. You look at the Java doc for this. Okay, you look at the Java doc, and so you see how big the architecture is. So many classes in it. Now you need to define an interface when you are making this big architecture. Okay, all the class names which are italic, see that these are italic, right? These are the interfaces. All the class names which are not italic, these are concrete classes. So if I scroll down and I see my WebDriver interface, see this is WebDriver. This is an interface. It is italic in nature, and you will see that it is written over here, interface WebDriver, and all the known implementing classes. So these are all the classes which are implementing the WebDriver interface. Okay, Android driver, Chrome driver, Event File driver, Firefox. So that means whatever contract this WebDriver interface is defining, all the classes are implementing it. Sorry. So is it that higher level rules and then subclasses implemented? Yes. It's kind of a higher level rule that okay, this is the rule. It's gonna be like that and implemented. Okay, so whosoever made the WebDriver interfaces told us that fine, these are the set of functions which the WebDriver should execute, should be having. Close, this will close the current window. Find element, this finds any element like button, link in the page while you are automating. Get will navigate your URL to your browser to a specific URL. Fine. Get current URL with actually get the current URL from the application. Fine. And get the page source will get the page source of the application. Get the title will get the title from the application. Okay. So right. And similarly, there are many functions in this interface. And all these functions are implemented by all these classes. All the functions are implemented by all these classes. Now suppose what is the advantage? Right now you cannot see that there is nothing known as Opera driver. The support for Opera browser is not there. Suppose if the Opera browser's support is to be given tomorrow, we will simply make a new class called Opera driver. Whosoever is developing, whosoever is looking inside the development of a WebDriver, he will simply make a new class called Opera driver, and Opera driver will implement the WebDriver and it will follow the same contract. Okay, so this is the advantage. Fine. That's why I told you that this is the mistake which people do, is that they directly start implementing Selenium without learning Java. If you learn Java first and then implement Selenium, it becomes very easy. It becomes easy to troubleshoot. It becomes easy to read the documentation. Okay. Now tomorrow, if you are stuck somewhere and if you don't know that how to move mouse with Selenium, you simply open the documentation, read the class names. Is there any class called mouse? Is there any class called mouse? Yes, I can see something known as mouse over here. It is italic. Okay, that means it is an interface. You click on it. Okay, these are the classes. These are the methods in the interface mouse. Click, context click, double click, mouse down, mouse move, mouse up. Right? But this is an interface, so some classes will be implementing it. These are the two classes: event firing mouse and HTML unit mouse. These are the classes which are implementing the mouse interface. So you can create the object of these classes and move your mouse. Okay, so it is like that. It happens like this. You need to know how to navigate through the documentation. That will make your work very, very easy. Right? Okay, so and remember, while teaching you arrays, when I taught you arrays, in day 2, I guess, I told you that there is something known as an object array. Object is a class, inbuilt class in Java, and it is the super class of all the classes. That is, if your class is not inheriting any class, by default it inherits the object class. Okay, what's there in the object class, we'll look at it, fine, but remember, object class is the super class of all the classes. That's why when you make an array of an object class, you can store anything inside it. Alright, so this is the This is the basic crux of module number 4, inheritance and interfaces, and how to actually see the documentation for Selenium and how to use Selenium with uh, all this stuff, right? And it's not feasible for any human being to remember about so many classes until unless you don't work on Selenium for 3 to 4 years continuously every day. Okay, so you have to develop a skill that if you are stuck somewhere, you should be able to read the classes. You should be able to understand from the documentation, right, or from Google. That's the best way to learn Selenium, right? So now that's all for this module.